You may recall your viral call out of Marjorie Taylor Greene when she clutched her pearls about the very real issue of anti-Semitism, but coming from her, it was wildly inauthentic. Can you talk about that? Because you responded to her immediately in that hearing.
Well, yeah, I mean, she was speaking and she said something that made me do a double take. I actually asked some of the staff to go back in the video in the background to make sure that I heard Marjorie Taylor Greene say, I denounced white supremacy. We denounce white supremacy, something along those lines.
This is an extremely concerning situation. I don't think anyone in the United States government, Americans, do not support actual Nazis or white supremacists. I know I certainly do not.
And I remember, because it happened in my district, one Marjorie Taylor Greene coming and keynoting a white supremacist conference led by known anti-Semite, bigot, and pedophile Nick Fuentes here in Orlando, Florida, like a year and a half or 2 years ago.
We are humbled and excited to welcome to the stage right now for our first speech, and we love to get to know her much better. I think this is going to be the beginning of something great. The representative from Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
So the timing worked out because I spoke right after she spoke, and I reminded her that you are a white supremacist.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Frost from Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I get into it, it's interesting to hear my colleague just now talk about disavowing white supremacists when in 2022, she spoke at an event led by white supremacist and white nationalist Nick Fuentes, and when asked about it, doubled down on it and said, we're going to focus on people, not labels. So get out of here with that damn hypocrisy.
I mean, she is a white supremacist because she headlined the white supremacist convention. And by the way, when she was asked about it by the press, she didn't say, well, I disagree with them on white supremacy, but I was there to get Republican votes. I wouldn't really give her much credit for that. Maybe I'd give her 5 percentage points more than I would before. But no, she doubled down on it. Sees no fault in headlining the white supremacist convention led by known anti-Semite and bigot and pedophile Nick Fuentes, and she's a member of the Congress. So Marjorie Taylor Greene is an elected white supremacist, and we have to recognize that. Again, it's not hyperbole. We have to recognize that because, unfortunately, due to the fact that then Kevin McCarthy and now Speaker Johnson are the two weakest speakers in the history of our country, the far right, which in part is led by Marjorie Taylor Greene, is calling a lot of the shots in the House of Representatives right now.
They hold the leash. Yeah.
They hold the leash around these two gentlemen. And so it is imperative that we take back the House. I'm confident we will, because again, even if you disagree with Democrats on issues, I'm not even talking about issues. Like, I'm not even talking about ideological debates here. I'm talking about democracy, and I'm talking about the ability to govern. And that's it.
Yeah, and
and then we can debate the issues.
Very true. And again, I just love the fact that even though I know you take anti-Semitism very seriously, you refuse to concede this idea that she has any credibility on this issue. I love this. I feel like other Democrats would have fallen into a wildly different trap, even though because the criticism would have been coming from an inauthentic source, you refuse to do that, and I really respect it.
No, I'm not going to go down that route with someone who is an extremely anti-Semitic person who brings up tropes about Jewish people all the time and then associates herself with literal Nazis, like neo-Nazis. We're just not going to have that, because what it does is it denigrates this important issue in the halls of Congress if we allow it to go unanswered. When anti-Semitism is a serious problem, we've seen rises in it across the country and in bigotry. And so when you leave that unanswered, what it does for folks at home who might not be Jewish or know Jewish folks, and in the abstract anti-Semitism or this and that is right, that people internalize this stuff, and it goes in the back of their head. And so it's important. We got to answer it straight up. because when disinformation, misinformation sits out there and it goes unanswered, it fills the void. There's a lot of voids to be filled in public conversation. That's why important we got to talk about it.
Another standout moment, this one is much funnier for me, is the when you got read into the congressional record that Donald Trump is, quote, a pussy ass bitch, courtesy of Chrissy Teigen.
Ms. Naravoli, earlier you testified about a 2019 tweet that was about President Trump, and I think it was from Ms. Teigen. What was the tweet about?
Would you like me to give the direct quote?
Yeah.
Please excuse my language. This is a direct quote, but Chrissy Teigen referred to Donald Trump as a pussy ass bitch.
Okay. Free speech. And what happened after Ms. Teigen posted her tweet? What did the White House do? What did the Trump White House do?
From my understanding, the White House reached out to ask that this tweet be removed. It was my team's job. This fell underneath the policy for abusive behaviors, and we evaluated underneath our insults policy. At that time, up to 3 insults were allowed, and so it was our job to determine how many insults were included within that phrase.
So the Trump White House reached out, not an agency, but the White House reached out and requested that you remove the tweet.
From my understanding, yes.
Okay.
This, of course, is in reference to the Twitter files.
Yep.
You know, you have Republicans saying that before President Biden was elected, he was somehow nefariously censoring Donald Trump, the then sitting president. But then we learned, shocker, that Donald Trump, as the sitting president, had some pretty censorious instincts. So I'd like you to just talk briefly about that moment, because I think it was not only hilarious, number one, number two, it exposed the hypocrisy of the Republicans on so-called censorship. So could you touch on that,
Exactly.
please?
Well, because they were trying to make, there's a lot of problems here. Number one, they were trying to make this false equivalence between the two presidents. And what they were saying is Joe Biden utilized the federal government to take down negative speech about him on social media. And what they were referring to is they kept saying 2019, 2019. Who was president in 2019?
Donald Trump, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, then former vice president, Joe Biden was just a candidate. They had reached out to social media to flag misinformation relating to him and his family, and that was it. He didn't use the federal government to force a company to take down negative speech. They reached out to a company to flag misinformation. That's fine. People do it all the time. When at the same time, and this is what I asked the Twitter executive, asked about the Chrissy Teigen tweet, because then current president at the time, Donald Trump, had the White House to Twitter to ask them to take it down. So what they were accusing Joe Biden of doing not only didn't happen, but Donald Trump did it himself. And then the jury on the thing is that, you know, and in all honesty, I didn't know what the tweet read because we were talking about it in the abstract in the hearing. So like we were saying that, you know, the Chrissy Teigen tweet, I didn't know what it was. And so that's why I asked for them to read it. I actually did not know what it was. And then when she said that, I don't know if you look at the video, you can see I'm holding back tears because I'm like, oh my God. And this was like my 3rd hearing. So I actually kind of thought I might be in trouble. I was like, am I in trouble for having this read? I didn't know what it meant, but it obviously created a viral moment. And, you know, Chrissy Teigen actually sent me a DM after that went viral, you know, because she had taken a step back from politics and stuff just because of all the vitriol online. And she had said that moment had kind of given her some fire. And so it was a pretty crazy for my 2nd or 3rd week in Congress, but kind of indicative of that committee as a whole.